The dumpster behind DeLuca's Italian kitchen had somehow turned into my regular spot. Not because their food was better than anywhere else, but because every morning at exactly 9:30, they tossed out their bread. Most days it was still warm, sealed in plastic, clean enough to eat without thinking too hard about it. I was 43 years old, a licensed veterinarian with 16 years under my belt, and I was planning my days around trash pickup times. That realization alone should have hurt more than it did. That October morning began with frost crusted over my sleeping bag and a hunger so sharp it made the room spin. The coat I'd pulled from behind a Goodwill donation bin 2 weeks earlier wasn't cutting it anymore. Winter was on its way, and I knew exactly what that meant for people like me. Not everyone survived it. Some never saw spring again. I had just fished out a half-eaten lasagna, still sitting in its takeout container, when I heard footsteps behind me. They echoed cleanly against the wet pavement. Not the dragging shuffle of security or the angry stomp of someone ready to chase me off. These sounded deliberate, polished, expensive shoes, moving with confidence. Daniel Caldwell? The voice was calm, professional, almost cautious. Daniel Thomas Caldwell? I turned slowly, still holding the lasagna like it might disappear if I let go. The man standing there looked like he belonged in a high-end law firm commercial. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than I used to earn in a month, a silver tie, and carried a leather briefcase that somehow shined even under the dull gray sky. His hair was steel gray and perfectly in place, untouched by the wind. "Who's asking?" I said. My voice came out rough, harsher than I meant it to. 3 months on the street will do that to you. It changes how you talk, how you stand, how long you can hold someone's gaze. "My name is Edgar Hawthorne," he said. "I'm an estate attorney from New York." He reached into his coat, and my body tightened on instinct. Only when I saw him pull out a photograph did I relax a fraction. "Is this you? Taken in 2018? The picture showed me wearing my white veterinary coat, standing in front of my clinic, smiling like I had everything figured out. Back when I had a home, a practice, a wife I believed loved me, a daughter who still returned my calls. "How did you get that?" I asked. "Your great-uncle, Leonard Whitaker, passed away last month in Manhattan," Hawthorne said evenly. "You were named in his will." I laughed. It came out sharp and bitter, the kind of laugh that surprises even the person making it. "Uncle Leonard," I said. "He sent me $5 and a birthday card every year until I turned 18. After that, nothing. I haven't heard from him in 25 years. Hawthorne didn't flinch. "Mr. Whitaker was particular about family contact," he said, "but he kept close records. He knew about your veterinary practice in Cedar Falls. He knew about your divorce from Elena." Then he added quietly, "He also knew about your current circumstances." My current circumstances. I looked down at myself, stained jeans I'd been wearing for 2 weeks, shoes held together with duct tape I'd scavenged. "You mean," I said slowly, "he knew I've been homeless for 3 months?" "Yes," Hawthorne replied, his voice softening just slightly. "He knew everything. Then he delivered the part that knocked the air out of me. And he left you his entire estate." The lasagna slipped from my hands and hit the pavement with a wet splatter. "His Manhattan penthouse on the Upper East Side," Hawthorne continued. "His 40-foot yacht docked in the Hamptons. His investment portfolio, art collection, and rare books." He paused before adding, "The total estimated value is $47 million. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the edge of the dumpster to keep myself upright. "This is a scam," I said. "Some kind of con." Without a word, Hawthorne opened his briefcase and handed me a document. "The law firm of Hawthorne, Prescott and Associates has managed the Whitaker estate for over 30 years, he said. "Here's my card, my bar certification number, and a copy of the death certificate. You're free to verify all of it." I stared at the papers, the official seals, the registration numbers, things that didn't lie. $47 million. 6 months earlier, Elena had laughed at me outside the courthouse. "No one will ever love a broke man like you," she'd said, sliding into her new boyfriend Simon's BMW. "You're going to die alone in the street, Daniel. You're pathetic." "There has to be some mistake," I said quietly. "Uncle Leonard had successful relatives. My cousin Ethan works on Wall Street. Ryan's a surgeon at Mount Sinai. Why would he leave everything to me?" "There is one condition," Hawthorne said. There it was. The hook. "But I can't discuss it here. Mr. Whitaker left specific instructions. You must travel to New York, go to his penthouse, and watch a video message he recorded. Only after that will you learn what's required to claim the inheritance. And if I don't? I asked. If I stay here? Then in 72 hours, he said, the entire estate transfers to an alternate beneficiary. Someone you know quite well. He studied my face for a moment. Your ex-wife, Elena Caldwell. The world tilted. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I still felt the cold from my sleeping bag in my bones, tasted the desperation of the last 3 months. Mr. Caldwell, Hawthorne said, glancing at his Rolex as it caught the weak sunlight. I have a car waiting. We can be in New York by noon. You'll have time to shower, change clothes, and eat a real meal. Whatever you decide about the inheritance, at least give yourself that. I looked back at the dumpster that had fed me, the alley where I'd learned to sleep with one eye open, the life that barely felt like living anymore. Somewhere in Manhattan, a penthouse carried my name, and $47 million sat waiting. All I had to do was find out what my dead uncle wanted in return. Give me 5 minutes, I said. I need to tell someone I'm leaving. As I walked off to find Caleb, the Vietnam vet who'd taught me which shelters were safe and which churches actually helped, I couldn't shake the feeling that Uncle Leonard had been planning this for a very long time. The uncle I barely remembered, the one who mailed me $5 every birthday like it was a sacred obligation, had apparently been watching my life from a distance the entire time. Waiting for me to fall far enough that I'd finally understand whatever lesson he thought I needed to learn. When I came back to the alley, the man in the $1,000 suit was still there, standing beside the dumpster, looking just as out of place as Hope does in a homeless shelter. But he was real. The documents were real. And somewhere in New York City, my dead uncle had left me either a fortune or one last, elaborate punchline. Either way, it beat digging through trash while my ex-wife told people I might as well already be dead. 18 months earlier, I had everything a small-town veterinarian could reasonably want. My clinic sat on Maple Street in Cedar Falls, Ohio. From the outside, it wasn't impressive, just a converted 2-story house with a painted sign that read Caldwell Veterinary Care. Inside, though, it was mine. That place was my kingdom. I knew every square foot of it. I'd installed the surgery lights myself. I'd chosen soft blue paint for the walls because studies said it calmed nervous animals. Every detail mattered to me. The day my life began to come apart started out completely ordinary. I was examining Mrs. Reynolds's ancient tabby cat when Elena called. "We need to talk tonight," she said. Her voice had that sharp edge I'd been hearing more and more often. "And don't tell me you're working late again." Elena and I had been married for 15 years. We met when she brought in her roommate's sick ferret. Back when I'd just finished vet school and she was working at a bank. She laughed at my awkward jokes and said she admired a man who cared for helpless creatures. Somewhere along the line, admiration turned into resentment. "Why can't you be more ambitious?" she started asking about 5 years into our marriage. Look at Sabrina's husband, Thomas. Thomas had just made partner at his firm. Thomas and Sabrina were vacationing in Cabo next month. Sabrina, her best friend from college, had become Elena's favorite measuring stick for everything we weren't. Thomas bought Sabrina a Tesla for her birthday. Thomas invested early in cryptocurrency. Thomas took Sabrina to Paris for their anniversary. I tried to explain that I was happy, that our life was good. We owned our home. We had no debt except the mortgage. I was doing work that mattered to me. "Mrs. Lou's golden retriever is alive because of the surgery I did last week," I told her once. "Doesn't that count for something?" "It doesn't pay for a vacation home," she said. The night she asked for a divorce, I found her packing a suitcase in our bedroom. "I've been seeing Simon Fairbrook," she announced, like she was telling me she'd switched grocery stores. "He's an executive at Pharmatech Industries. He has ambition, Daniel." Simon Fairbrook. I'd met him once at a town fundraiser. Perfect teeth. Firm handshake. The kind of guy who still wore his college ring 20 years later and made sure you noticed his watch cost more than your car. The divorce was uglier than I ever imagined. Elena's lawyer argued that she'd sacrificed her career to support my modest ambitions. Never mind that she'd quit 3 different jobs in 10 years because she didn't like her managers. The judge awarded her the house, half the value of my clinic, and monthly alimony that crushed what little was left of my business. My mother, Margaret, tried to save me. At 71, she lived on Social Security and my father's small pension from his 30 years at the phone company. Dad had died 5 years earlier, heart attack, right in the middle of mowing the lawn. Gone before the ambulance even arrived. Mom offered me her savings. All $8,000. I can't take your money, I told her, sitting in her kitchen that still smelled like the apple pie she baked every Sunday. Your father would want me to help, she said, hands shaking as she wrote the check. I took it, promised I'd pay her back, knowing I probably never would. My younger brother, Lucas, had done better in life. He managed a chain of hardware stores in Columbus. When I called and asked if he could loan me enough to keep the clinic running while I regrouped, he went quiet. Mike, I've got my own family to worry about, he said. Maybe this is a sign you should try something else. Elena always said you could have done better. Even my own brother had taken her side. The clinic couldn't survive the bleeding. I had to let go of Lauren, my veterinary assistant of 8 years. Then Julian, my receptionist. Eventually, it was just me, working 16-hour days, sleeping in the back office to save gas money. The last animal I treated was a stray dog found behind the grocery store, hit by a car. His leg was broken in 2 places. I fixed it anyway, knowing I'd never be paid and knowing it would be my final surgery. The next day, the bank foreclosed. My daughter Olivia was 16 then, a junior in high school. Elena had turned her completely against me. Mom says you chose your stupid animals over your family, Olivia texted. She says you could have been a real doctor, but you weren't smart enough. That hurt worse than losing the house, the clinic, or my marriage. Within 3 weeks of the foreclosure, I was living in my truck. When that got repossessed, all I had left was a backpack, a sleeping bag, and nowhere to go. The first night on the streets, I walked until dawn, too scared to sleep, too proud to cry. By the 3rd month, I'd learned the brutal math of homelessness, which dumpsters had edible food, which corners the police ignored, which shelters stole your shoes while you slept. The last time I saw Elena was outside Walmart, where I sometimes picked up day labor. She walked out with Simon, both of them laughing, arms full of shopping bags. She spotted me before I could turn away. The look of disgust on her face said everything. God, Daniel, you smell like a sewer, she said, loud enough that nearby shoppers slowed down to stare. Is this really what you've turned into? Thank God Olivia doesn't have to see this. Simon slid his arm around her and steered her toward his BMW. But Elena wasn't finished yet. You're pathetic, she called over her shoulder. No woman will ever want you now. You're going to die alone, probably in some alley, and nobody will even notice for weeks. That was 6 weeks ago, and every morning since, waking up on cardboard or bare concrete, those words played in my head. Maybe she was right. Men who fell this far didn't bounce back. We vanished. We turned into statistics, nameless entries on forms no one ever bothered to read. Standing in that alley with Edgar Hawthorne, clutching papers that claimed I was suddenly worth millions, I couldn't reconcile the man I'd been with what I'd become. Somewhere between the veterinarian with steady hands and a calm voice, and this hollow-eyed stranger who memorized trash schedules and restaurant routines, I'd lost myself completely. And yet, Uncle Leonard had apparently been watching the entire time, waiting for me to hit rock bottom, preparing something I didn't yet understand. The October morning that changed everything began with me waking up behind a loading dock, frost stiffening my joints until I felt twice my age. I couldn't even say for sure what day it was anymore. Tuesday maybe, or Wednesday. When your only appointments are with dumpsters, the days blur together. DeLuca's Italian kitchen tossed their leftover bread at exactly 9:30 every morning. Mr. DeLuca was a decent guy. He always double-bagged everything, and sometimes he made sure the good food sat right on top. I think he knew people like me depended on his trash. Once, I caught him watching from the back door while I sorted through the bags. Instead of yelling or calling security, he just nodded and went back inside. I'd just uncovered a container of lasagna, barely touched, probably from someone who ordered too much, when I heard footsteps. Clean ones. Measured. Expensive shoes tapping against wet pavement. After 3 months on the street, you learn to judge danger by sound alone. Mr. Daniel Thomas Caldwell? I turned slowly. The man standing there looked like money given human form. A navy suit without a wrinkle. A silver tie that caught the weak light. Shoes that probably cost more than I used to make in a week. He was around 60, silver-haired, carrying himself like someone who'd never wondered where his next meal was coming from. Who's asking? I said. My voice came out guarded, ready to bolt if I needed to. My name is Edgar Hawthorne, he replied. I'm an estate attorney with Hawthorne, Prescott and Associates out of New York. He reached into his coat carefully, like he understood sudden movements might spook me. I've been searching for you for 2 weeks. He pulled out a photograph, and my heart slammed into my ribs. It was me, my old self, standing in front of my clinic in a white coat, smiling like I had life all figured out. My hair was trimmed. My face was clean. My eyes still had hope in them. Is this you? He asked. Circa 2018? How did you get that? I said. The photo had come from my clinic's website, which should have been taken down months ago when I stopped paying for hosting. Your great-uncle, Leonard Whitaker, passed away last month in Manhattan, Hawthorne said. Before his death, he hired private investigators to keep updated records on all family members. He said it like that was perfectly normal. You were particularly difficult to locate after you lost your permanent address. Uncle Leonard. I had maybe 5 memories of him, all from childhood. Tall, always in dark suits. Present at family gatherings, but never really involved. He sent birthday cards with $5 bills every year until I turned 18, then disappeared completely. Mom occasionally mentioned him. Her mother's younger brother, who'd made money in New York and forgotten Ohio. I haven't spoken to him in 25 years, I said. Why would he be looking for me? Because he named you the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. The lasagna slipped from my numb fingers and burst across the asphalt. That's impossible. I assure you, it's both possible and entirely legal, Hawthorne said calmly, opening his briefcase with practiced precision. Mr. Whitaker's estate includes a Manhattan penthouse valued at $12 million, a yacht docked in the Hamptons worth $3 million, an extensive art collection, a library of rare first editions, and an investment portfolio currently valued at approximately $32 million. He looked at me steadily. After taxes and fees, the total estate value is $47 million. The world tilted. I grabbed the edge of the dumpster to stay upright. $47 million. Yesterday, I nearly fought another homeless man over half a sandwich. Now a stranger in a tailored suit was telling me I was rich. This is a scam, I said, even though I knew it wasn't. No con artist would waste time on someone like me. What could they steal? My sleeping bag. The $14 hidden in my shoe. Hawthorne handed me documents. Thick paper, raised seals, watermarks that caught the light. The death certificate, he said, pointing. The will, filed with the New York State Circuit Court. My credentials from the New York State Bar. Our firm has managed the Whitaker estate for over 30 years. But why me? My voice cracked. Uncle Leonard had successful relatives. My cousin Ethan works at Goldman Sachs. Ryan, Aunt Helena's son, is a surgeon. They actually knew him. Why leave everything to the family failure? Hawthorne's expression softened, just a fraction. There is a condition attached to the inheritance, he said. Of course there was. There was always a catch. Mr. Whitaker left specific instructions that cannot be discussed here. You must travel to New York, go to his penthouse, and watch a video message he recorded before his death. Only then will you learn what's required to claim the estate. What kind of condition? I asked. I'm legally prohibited from discussing it outside the residence. Hawthorne glanced down at his watch, a Rolex that caught what little sunlight the morning offered. I can tell you this much, he said. You have 72 hours to hear the terms. If you refuse or fail to appear, the entire estate goes to an alternate beneficiary. My stomach tightened. Who? Your ex-wife, he replied calmly. Elena Caldwell. I actually staggered back a step. Elena. The woman who'd taken everything in the divorce. The woman who'd laughed while my life burned down. The same woman who'd told me I'd die unloved and forgotten in some alley. The idea of her inheriting Uncle Leonard's millions made me nauseous. Mr. Whitaker was extremely thorough, Hawthorne continued. He knew about your divorce. He knew about Ms. Caldwell's relationship with Simon Fairbrook. He was also aware of her recent financial trouble after Mr. Fairbrook left her 3 months ago for his secretary. Simon had left Elena? A small, petty part of me, the part the streets hadn't beaten out yet, felt a flicker of satisfaction. The jet is waiting at the regional airport, Hawthorne said. We can be in New York by noon. There's a shower at the lounge, fresh clothes ready for you. Whatever you decide about the inheritance, Mr. Caldwell, at least allow yourself a hot meal and a real bed for one night. I looked around at the world I'd been surviving in. The dumpster that fed me. The cardboard I'd sleep on if I stayed. Caleb's shopping cart down the block, an American flag zip-tied to the side, snapping in the wind. This was my life. But it didn't have to be the end of it. What could the condition possibly be? I asked, mostly to myself. Hawthorne hesitated. I can only say this. Mr. Whitaker believed that character is revealed through adversity. In his final letter, he wrote that he chose you for reasons that would eventually become clear. Testing character through adversity. I almost laughed. If that was the test, I'd been taking it nonstop for 3 months, and failing a little more every day. Give me 1 hour, I said at last. I need to say goodbye to someone, and I need to think. Of course, Hawthorne replied. He handed me his business card. Thick, heavy stock that felt strange in my rough hands. The car will be waiting at 5th and Main, he said. Black Lincoln Town car. License plate BWA001. As he walked away, those expensive shoes clicking against the pavement, I stood there holding a business card worth more than everything else I owned combined. Somewhere in New York, a dead uncle I barely remembered had set up a test that would either make me a millionaire or hand everything to the woman who destroyed me. I found Caleb 2 blocks over, behind the old Texaco station, sorting aluminum cans with military precision. Each can was crushed the same way, organized neatly by brand. Old habits from his army days still ruled his hands, even after 40 years on the street. Hey, brother, I said. Something's happened. He looked up, his weathered face breaking into a crooked, gap-toothed smile. Michigan Mike, he said. You find breakfast? DeLuca's usually good on Tuesdays. That was his nickname for me, Michigan Mike. Even though I'd corrected him a dozen times that I was from Ohio. It didn't matter. In Caleb's world, everyone needed a name. Listen, I said. A lawyer just found me. Says my uncle died and left me money. A lot of money. I held out Hawthorne's card. The paper was so white it practically glowed in the gray morning. Caleb squinted at it, then at me. You been drinking that mouthwash again? He asked. That stuff will make you see things. I'm serious, I said. He wants me in New York today. If this is real, if even part of it's real, I might not be coming back. Caleb set the cans aside and really looked at me. In 3 months, he taught me everything about surviving out here. Which shelters had bedbugs? Which ones had real security? How to stay warm using cardboard and newspaper? Where the cops would leave you alone if you kept quiet. He'd pulled me back more than once when I was ready to give up entirely. You remember what I told you your first week? He asked. Don't trust anyone offering free anything, I said. The other thing. I thought back to those early, terrifying days. Every door that closes, I said slowly. Another one's waiting to open. You just gotta live long enough to find it. That's right, he said. Caleb reached into his card and pulled out something wrapped in plastic. He handed it to me. It was a watch, old but clean. The kind with real hands instead of digital numbers. Found it last week, he said. Was gonna trade it. But you'll need it more than me. Rich people care about time. The gesture cracked something inside me. This man, who owned almost nothing, was giving me one of his few valuables. Caleb, I can't. Yes, you can, he cut in, his voice firm. For a moment, the sergeant he used to be showed through. And if this thing's real, if you get that money, don't forget us out here. Don't turn into one of those people who crosses the street so they don't have to look at what they used to be. If this works, I said, gripping his shoulder, I'll come back for you. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep, Michigan, he said gently. Just remember we're human. That's all any of us wants, to be seen as human. I hugged him, this man who'd become my brother during the darkest stretch of my life, then turned and walked toward 5th and Main. The black Lincoln was already there, engine running, Hawthorne waiting in the back seat. The ride to the airport felt unreal. The leather seats were impossibly soft after months of concrete and cardboard. The heated seats kicked on, and I realized I'd forgotten such things even existed. Hawthorne handed me a folder filled with documents about Uncle Leonard's estate. Pages of legal language blurred past my eyes. I couldn't focus. At the private terminal of the regional airport, Hawthorne led me into a lounge I never knew existed. The shower facilities are through there, he said. I took the liberty of having clothes delivered. We estimated your size using your old driver's license records. The shower felt like a religious experience. Hot water that didn't sputter out after 3 minutes. Soap that smelled like cedar instead of industrial cleaner. I stood there for 20 minutes straight, watching 3 months of street life rinse off my body and spiral down the drain. When I looked at my hands afterward, they didn't feel like mine. Clean skin, fingernails that looked human again instead of packed with grime. The clothes waiting for me fit perfectly. Dark jeans, a crisp button-down, a navy blazer. Nothing flashy, just new, clean, and mine. In the mirror, I almost recognized myself. If you ignored the hollow cheeks and the flatness in my eyes, the man staring back could have passed for the veterinarian I used to be. On the jet, Hawthorne offered me coffee and sandwiches. Real coffee, not the instant packets I'd been stealing from gas stations. The sandwich had turkey, Swiss cheese, and lettuce that actually crunched. I ate slowly, my shrunken stomach protesting the richness. "Tell me about Uncle Leonard," I said as we climbed above the clouds. The real version, not the story he wanted people to tell. Hawthorne took his time answering. "Leonard Whitaker was brilliant, eccentric, and deliberately alone," he said. "He built his fortune through rare books and art authentication, but his true talent was reading people. He could spot a forged manuscript or painting instantly, but more importantly, he could read the person selling it, their desperation, their lies, their history. And yet," I said, "he left everything to a nephew he hadn't seen in decades. He kept detailed files on every family member," Hawthorne continued. "Your cousin Ethan, every transaction, every SEC filing. Your cousin Ryan's surgical career, patient reviews, malpractice claims, professional milestones. And me?" I asked. "You had monthly reports," he said. "Your clinic, your marriage, your collapse." I swallowed. "So he watched me become homeless and did nothing." "He was dying of pancreatic cancer," Hawthorne said quietly. "By the time you lost everything, he had weeks left to live. But yes, he watched." He paused. He believed suffering revealed character in ways success never could. Through the jet window, New York came into view. That skyline, steel and glass reaching upward like fingers grasping for heaven. Somewhere down there was a penthouse with my name on it, $47 million waiting, and a condition I couldn't begin to imagine. What kind of man puts conditions on saving his own family? I asked. "The kind who believes salvation shouldn't be free," Hawthorne replied. "Mr. Whitaker often said unearned money destroyed more lives than poverty ever did." As we descended toward Teterboro Airport, my thoughts drifted to Elena. According to Hawthorne, Simon had cheated, and she'd left him. She was facing foreclosure on the house she'd taken from me in the divorce. The idea of her inheriting Leonard's fortune if I failed this test made my stomach twist. But more than that, I heard Caleb's voice in my head. "Don't forget us out here." Whatever Leonard's condition was, I knew it wasn't just about money. It would decide what kind of man I became if I got it. The jet touched down smoothly. Hawthorne stood and straightened his tie. "The penthouse is about 40 minutes away," he said. "Mr. Whitaker's video message is ready in his study." "Am I ready?" he asked. I wasn't. After months of having no real choices, just which dumpster to check or where to sleep, being handed a decision worth $47 million felt overwhelming. Still, I stood, adjusted the blazer that still smelled like new fabric, and followed Hawthorne into whatever game my dead uncle had designed. "One more thing," Hawthorne said as we walked toward the waiting car. "Whatever you think of Mr. Whitaker after watching the message, understand this. He spent his final weeks perfecting this plan. He died believing he chose correctly." That weight, faith from a man I barely remembered, felt heavier than all the money waiting in Manhattan. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building overlooking Central Park. We rode a private elevator that required a special key, and when the doors opened, I stepped into a world I'd only ever seen on screens. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a living painting. Leather furniture and dark wood filled the space, elegant without shouting its price. Original artwork lined the walls, and even with my limited knowledge, I recognized a Monet. "This way," Hawthorne said, guiding me through rooms that felt more like a museum than a home. The library stopped me cold. Thousands of books, stretching from floor to ceiling. Some were sealed behind glass, marked with small brass plaques, first editions dating back centuries. The study was smaller, more personal. A massive mahogany desk dominated the room. On one wall hung a large flat screen that looked almost out of place among the antiques. Hawthorne gestured to a leather chair facing the screen. "The message will play once," he said. "Mr. Whitaker was very specific about that. I'll be in the next room when you're finished." He pressed the remote. The screen flickered. Uncle Leonard appeared, and my breath caught. He looked exactly as I remembered, yet ravaged by illness. His face was gaunt. His tailored suit hung loose on a body that had once been powerful, but his eyes were sharp, alive, focused. "Hello, Daniel," he said. His voice carried more strength than his body suggested. "If you're watching this, then Edgar found you living on the streets, probably behind some restaurant, surviving on discarded food." A chill ran through me. "I know this because I've been watching you for years," he continued, "just as I watched all my relatives. But you, Daniel, you're the one I was waiting for." He leaned forward. Without realizing it, I did too. "The condition of your inheritance is simple," he said. "Within 5 years, you must help at least 100 people escape homelessness." He paused. Real help. Documented help. The shower felt unreal. Hot water that didn't cut off after a few minutes. Soap with a clean, woodsy scent instead of harsh chemicals. I stayed under the spray far longer than necessary, watching 3 months of street grime wash away and disappear down the drain. When I finally shut the water off and looked at my hands, they didn't seem like mine anymore. Clean skin. Fingernails that looked normal again, not dark and cracked from dirt. The clothes laid out for me fit like they'd been chosen by someone who actually knew my body. Dark jeans, a pressed button-down, a navy blazer. Nothing expensive looking, just fresh, clean, and unfamiliar in the best way. The mirror showed a version of me I hadn't seen in a long time. If you ignored the sunken cheeks and the tired eyes, I almost looked like the veterinarian I used to be. Once we were airborne, Hawthorne offered coffee and sandwiches. Real coffee, rich and hot, not the powdered junk I'd been stealing from gas stations. The sandwich was thick with turkey and Swiss, and the lettuce snapped when I bit into it. I ate slowly, my stomach protesting food this rich after months of scraps. "Tell me about my uncle," I said as the plane climbed through the clouds. "Not the myth, the real man." Hawthorne didn't answer right away. "Leonard Whitaker was exceptionally intelligent," he said finally. "Eccentric, and intentionally isolated. He made his money authenticating rare books and artwork, but what truly set him apart was his ability to read people. Forgery was easy for him. Understanding desperation, greed, and fear, that was his real skill. And still," I said, "he left everything to a nephew he barely knew." "He kept extensive records on every member of his family," Hawthorne replied. "Ethan, every trade, every filing. Ryan, his entire medical career, patient outcomes, lawsuits. And me? You had monthly updates," he said. "Your clinic, your marriage, your downfall." My throat tightened. "So he watched me end up on the street." "He was terminally ill," Hawthorne said softly. "Pancreatic cancer. By the time you lost everything, he had only weeks left. But yes, he watched." Then he added, "He believed suffering revealed truth in ways comfort never could." Outside the window, New York appeared, steel and glass rising from the earth like hands reaching upward. Somewhere beneath us sat a penthouse with my name attached to it, $47 million waiting, and a condition I still didn't understand. "What kind of man makes family earn their rescue?" I asked. "One who believed rescue without effort ruins people," Hawthorne said. "Mr. Whitaker often said money given freely does more damage than hardship ever could." As we descended toward Teterboro, my thoughts drifted to Elena. Hawthorne had mentioned Simon cheating, mentioned that she was now facing foreclosure on the house she'd taken from me. The idea that all of this could end up in her hands if I failed made my stomach knot. But louder than that was Caleb's voice in my head. "Don't forget us." Whatever Leonard had planned wasn't just about wealth. It was about who I'd be allowed to become. The jet landed smoothly. Hawthorne stood, adjusting his tie. 40 minutes to the penthouse," he said. "Mr. Whitaker's message is ready." "Am I ready?" he asked. I wasn't. After months of having no real choices, only survival decisions, being handed one worth $47 million felt crushing. Still I stood, smoothed the blazer that still smelled new, and followed Hawthorne forward. "One last thing," he said as we headed toward the waiting car. "Whatever your opinion of Mr. Whitaker after the video, understand this. He spent his final weeks refining this plan. He died convinced he made the right choice." That belief weighed heavier than the money ever could. The penthouse took up the entire top floor overlooking Central Park. We rode up in a private elevator that required a special key, and when the doors opened, I stepped into a different world. Windows stretched from floor to ceiling, framing Manhattan like artwork. The furniture was leather and dark wood, quietly expensive. Original paintings lined the walls, and even I recognized a Monet. "This way," Hawthorne said, guiding me deeper inside. The library stopped me in my tracks. Thousands of books, shelves rising to the ceiling. Some volumes sealed behind glass, labeled with brass plates marking first editions centuries old. The study felt more personal. A massive mahogany desk, antiques everywhere, and one modern object, a large screen mounted on the wall. Hawthorne motioned to a leather chair facing it. "The recording will play once," he said. "Mr. Whitaker insisted on that. I'll wait in the other room." He pressed the remote. The screen flickered on. Uncle Leonard appeared, and my breath caught in my chest. He looked like the man I remembered, but worn down by illness. His face was thin. His suit hung loose on a body that had once been strong. But his eyes were sharp, focused, alive. "Hello, Daniel," he said, his voice stronger than his appearance. "If you're seeing this, then Edgar found you on the streets, likely behind some restaurant, living off what others threw away." A cold wave moved through me. "I know this because I've been watching you," he continued. "I watched all of them. But you, Daniel, you're the one I was waiting for." He leaned closer to the camera. I leaned forward without thinking. "The condition of your inheritance is straightforward," he said. "Within 5 years, you must help no fewer than 100 people escape homelessness." He paused. Genuine help. Proven help. I stayed by the windows long after Hawthorne stepped out, watching the city sink into night. One by one, lights flickered on across Manhattan, thousands of tiny lives glowing in the dark. Every window held a story. Fear, hope, struggle. 24 hours earlier, I'd been digging through trash. Now I own this place. $47 million. And a responsibility that felt heavier than the skyline itself. The first call I made wasn't to a banker or an advisor. It was to Caleb. I had Hawthorne take me to a phone store first. A real phone. A real number. Then I asked him to drive me back to the Texaco station like nothing had changed. Caleb was still there, sorting aluminum cans into neat piles for tomorrow's recycling run. "Well, I'll be damned," he said when he saw me step out of the Lincoln. "Michigan Mike, you clean up real nice." Guess that lawyer fellow wasn't lying. "It's real," I said, dropping down onto the curb beside his cart. I didn't care that my new clothes brushed against concrete. All of it. He studied my face for a moment. "So why do you look like someone just put the weight of the world on your shoulders?" "Because they did," I said. "I need your help." Caleb barked out a laugh. "Brother, you just became rich. What could you possibly need from me?" "I have to help 100 people get off the streets," I said. "Real help. Not handouts. Not empty promises." His smile faded. "You know these streets better than any agency," I continued. "You know who's ready, who's not, who needs treatment, who just needs a chance. I want you to run outreach for me." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Mike, I haven't had a real job in 20 years. "You've been doing this job for 20 years, I said. "Just without a paycheck. You kept people alive. You taught me how to survive. I need that knowledge." It took him a long moment to respond. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's do some good." Within a week, the Whitaker Foundation was born. The office wasn't impressive, just a converted storefront, but it was exactly where it needed to be. Somewhere people could walk into without feeling judged or afraid. Caleb was my first official hire. His first piece of advice reshaped everything. "Don't make them beg," he said. "Give them dignity. Give them options." So we built a system around choice. Some people needed rehab before anything else. Some needed mental health care. Some were just one opportunity away from getting back on their feet. Everyone got a caseworker. But more importantly, everyone got a mentor who'd lived it. The third person we helped was Edith. She was the elderly woman I'd once shared a half sandwich with months earlier. All she needed was stability, a small apartment, and help navigating benefits she didn't even know she qualified for. When we got her into a senior living facility, fully covered, she cried for nearly an hour. "I thought I'd die out there," she kept saying. "I thought that was how my story ended." By the 6-month mark, 37 people had found stability. Every case was documented, verified by Hawthorne's firm. But more importantly, every success was supported long-term. We didn't disappear once someone had keys in their hand. We stayed. That's when Elena walked through the door. I barely recognized her at first. The designer clothes were the same, but they hung differently now. Looser. The confidence was gone. So was the BMW. Daniel, she said, standing just inside the doorway like she wasn't sure she belonged there. I heard about the inheritance. About the foundation. What do you want, Elena? She swallowed. Simon left me. For his secretary. The house is in foreclosure. I've been staying with friends, but they're tired of me. She couldn't look at me. I was wrong, she whispered. About everything. You were always worth more than him. I looked at the woman who had laughed at me at my lowest, who had told me I'd die alone on the street. The old me would have enjoyed this moment. The man Uncle Leonard had challenged me to become didn't. I can't be with you again, I said. That part of my life is over. I know, she said quickly. I'm not asking for that. I need work. Anything. I'll do whatever it takes. The foundation helps people experiencing homelessness, I said. I will be, she said, her voice breaking. Soon. I handed her a card. This is a good employment agency. They'll help you find something. She looked up at me, tears running freely now. That's it, she asked. That's it, I said. No money. No favors. You have to rebuild on your own. She nodded. Then she left. 3 months later, my daughter called. Dad, Olivia said. I read an article about your foundation. Mom lied to me about why you disappeared. I should have known better. You were a kid, I said softly. Can I volunteer? She asked. I'm 17 now. I want to help. That's how I got my daughter back. Not through money, but through purpose. She came every Saturday, served meals, sorted donations, sat with people and listened. She had a gift with the younger ones, the runaways, the kids no one else reached. By the end of year 3, we'd helped 86 people. Not everyone made it. Some relapsed. Some vanished back into the streets. Accepting that was the hardest lesson of all. But most succeeded. They found jobs, reconnected with family, rebuilt lives they thought were gone forever. Then Hawthorne called. Daniel, he said, his voice tight. I found something in Mr. Whitaker's papers. A journal, dated 1969. You need to see this. The entry was marked December 15th, 1969. The man who saved me finally told me his full name today. Arthur Caldwell. He's been like a father to me these past 2 years. That's what the journal said next. Leonard had written about a man who'd taken him in, guided him, steadied him when he had nothing. The man had mentioned a son named Jonathan, living in Ohio. Leonard wondered if he'd ever meet the boy. Wondered if he'd ever be able to repay the kindness he'd been shown. Jonathan. That was my father's name. There's more, Hawthorne said quietly, turning another page. Arthur Caldwell knew exactly who your uncle was. He had his own journal entry from that same date. Arthur's handwriting was shaky, but the words were steady. Told young Leonard my name today. Don't think he realizes I know who he is. Margaret's brother, the one who went missing after the war. Family believes he's dead. I won't break his trust by telling them. But I'm glad I could help Margaret's blood. Good boy. Just lost. He'll find his way. My grandfather had known the truth the entire time. He had saved his sister-in-law's brother after the war. Sheltered him. Helped him rebuild. And never told a soul. Never claimed credit. Never asked for thanks. That single act of quiet kindness had sent ripples through decades. Those ripples reached Uncle Leonard. And eventually, they reached me. Standing there in the penthouse where my uncle died alone, I finally understood something. The inheritance was never the money. It was the proof. Proof that kindness moves in circles. That helping someone can echo forward in ways we'll never live to see. That love works quietly, across years, through strangers, through people who may never know our names. By the end of year 5, we'd helped 103 people leave the streets for good. The foundation had grown beyond anything I imagined. Other donors stepped in. Programs expanded. Caleb became a respected voice in outreach work, invited to speak about dignity and real solutions instead of empty slogans. My daughter went to college for social work. She planned to continue the mission long after I was gone. But the moment that hit me hardest came one quiet afternoon in the penthouse. I found an old photograph tucked inside Uncle Leonard's desk. It was from my grandfather's funeral, something I barely remembered. In the background, standing off to the side, was a much younger Uncle Leonard. He'd come to say goodbye to the man who saved him, even though no one else knew the connection. On the back of the photo, in Leonard's handwriting, were the words, Arthur Caldwell, 1910 to 1985. You saved me without asking for anything. I'll pay it forward. I promise. And he had. Through me. Through the 100 lives we helped. Through the thousands more the foundation would reach in the years ahead. The money was just a tool. The real gift was understanding that we're all connected. That kindness travels through time. That today's homeless man might be tomorrow's savior. Uncle Leonard learned that from my grandfather. I learned it on the streets. And somewhere out there, someone we helped would learn it too, passing it on to someone else who needed a hand. That's how the world actually changes. Not through $47 million inheritances, but through one person helping another, through chains of compassion that stretch across generations. My grandfather started it with a desperate veteran behind his bookshop. Uncle Leonard continued it with his fortune and his faith in me. And now, it was my responsibility to keep that chain going, one life at a time. Standing in that penthouse, no longer homeless, but never forgetting what that felt like, I finally understood what my uncle meant about accepting help. Taking someone's hand isn't weakness. It's the first link in a chain that eventually pulls someone else to safety. The fortune wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. And somewhere out there, I like to believe my grandfather and Uncle Leonard were watching, quietly satisfied that their investment in kindness had finally paid off. If this story moved you, if it made you see the people you pass every day a little differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Real change starts when we remember that everyone is human, and that we're all just one bad moment away from needing help ourselves. If you've experienced unexpected kindness, or been saved by someone when you needed it most, share your story. And remember this: every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Always.